Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Arizona Chapter, and welcome to our Arizona Chapter General Membership Meeting for today, January 21st, 2022. We are very excited that you all are here, and thank you for being flexible with us as we navigate these challenging times through COVID. We did have an in-person meeting scheduled that we were really excited to get together in person in Queen Creek, but as you know, things have changed and we are being sensitive to our world and adjusting as we can. So we put together this webinar and hopefully we can reach more folks in this manner as we could in person. So we wanted to be sensitive to that. So welcome. And we have an informative meeting for you all, some updates regarding SWANA and what's going on within the Arizona chapter in particular. I do want to take the time to welcome you and then also to introduce you to our board. We do have a few board members that are new for this year that have started their term. We have Eduardo Rodriguez. He is from the city of Phoenix, an operations manager with the city. So happy to have him join the board in his first year. We also have Isaiah Garcia Romero, who's from the city of Mesa. He joins the board representing city of Mesa. And then we also have Carlos de la Torre from the city of Tucson. So welcome, Carlos.
Good morning.
We're excited to have his expertise on the board. And then as well, Christina Posgrove, also from city of Tucson, has renewed a new year with the board. So we're excited to have her continue on. So welcome to our new board members. They've been already fast at work getting everything set up for the members. So thank you to them and welcome them to the board. Throughout the meeting, just some housekeeping, because we are not in person and more of this virtual platform, which I'm sure we're all used to by now after 2 years of being in COVID. There is a chat or a Q&A function at the bottom of the screen. So if you click down, there should be a chat. Please feel free at any time, especially after our presentation today. We will reserve some time for Q&A. That will be the best way to get a question over to us, and I will moderate that and read those questions to our guests that you may have questions to. So please use that function in order to get a question over to us. Appreciate it. We do have, let's see, I wanted to do a poll, but I'll figure that one out as we go. So sorry about that, technical difficulties on the poll. But for us to start, we do have an international board update from Pat Tapia, who is our international board member. He represents the chapter and he sits on the international board. So he has a few updates for us. So Pat, I'll let you provide the update. Go ahead.
Thank you, Lori. Good morning, everyone. Pat Tapia with the city of Tucson, international board representative on the board of directors. First off, just want to wish everybody a happy new year and welcome to a new year. And hopefully we see things point in the right or go in the right direction this year. I know it's been a tough 2 years for everyone. So welcome everyone. Appreciate everybody that gets on the general membership meeting. So thank you. So quick update on the international side. The Paycheck Protected Program. We just received word from the Small Business Association this week that the second loan has been forgiven. National SWANA had put in for 2 loans. Last year, the first loan was actually forgiven, and that was for about $440,000. And this one was for about $454,000. Although this was expected, it was still a relief to receive the email, notifying us that we was relieved. As a reminder, though, they did remind us that it doesn't provide SWANA with any additional revenue, but instead allows us to move the loan off the balance sheet as a liability, which will reflect in the January 2022 financial report that we'll be receiving in late February. The next update is for SOARS. SWANA's annual technical conference will be returning after a 3-year hiatus. in which the new name SOAR, which is now stands for the Sustainability Operations Action Resources. And it'll be taking place in Kansas City, Missouri on March 21st to the 24th. If everyone remembers, that was formerly known as SWANApalooza. SOAR is it's a premier technical conference for the solid waste industry. It delivers technical solutions to our resource management needs. The SWANA Technical Division has done a great job working with staff to develop a terrific training program, as well as a great team of speakers that will be coming to the session, which will include Nina Shah from EPA. She's actually going to discuss implementation of the National Recycling Strategy in the US, which will be followed by an interactive opportunity for participants that will be able to brainstorm on how to assist EPA in implementing the strategy. The board will be, the board of directors, SWANA board of directors will be meeting actually on Sunday, March 20th and the 21st to talk over the next technical divisions, and they'll also be meeting on the 21st as well. As far as SWANA being an advocacy group, SWANA intends to be a key participant in EPA's efforts to implement the National Recycling Strategy. And a core advocacy group had a meeting which discussed recycling, PFAS, landfill regulations, and much more, which you're going to be hearing a little bit from Pete Klimoski, is going to be giving an update on that when he gives his presentation. As far as training goes, development of the Canadian version of MOLO, it's underway, and we'll expect it to be available in spring. The US version of MOLO is actually being offered in a number of places already. And in the next few months, they're going to be having the training in Las Vegas at the SWANA Training Center. That'll be in Las Vegas. And we want to please encourage members to register for the SWANA Training Center in Vegas as much as possible. That's going to be February 7th through the 10th. Also, it'll also be offered at SOARS on March 21st through 23rd in Kansas City. Actually, we're getting a lot of interest on the MOLO, so that's really a good thing. As far as international goes, David Biederman will be speaking at a January 19th World Bank webinar on solid waste issues in developing countries. If it's recorded and the bank provides a copy, we'll be able to request that if you're interested in seeing that, because it's going to be taped. We won't be able to see it live. So if it is recorded, let me know. I'm going to try to get a copy so that we can actually put it on the SWANA website, that way for everyone to see. They will also be speaking virtually at a solid waste conference in Brazil in March. So you can see one thing that David is really doing is trying to extend as much as possible internationally to get SWANA's message out there, which is a good thing. Also a big discussion that's going on nationwide is the labor shortage. So the record level of COVID-19 cases have resulted in collection delays and suspension in a lot of places. So certain services is growing a number of communities. CNN also posted, and actually they did an article on the Omicron virus and how it's affecting the industry. They actually quoted David Biederman on there as well. I'll be putting that link on our website, so you can click on it and look at it if you'd like to read through that. The other thing, and the final thing, is Safety Matters. We're pleased to report that we began offering the Safety Matters in French, which is our friends in Canada. They really like to get more engaged on the SWANA side and on the Safety Matters. So we've been able to extend that out to them. The SWANA Quebec chapter was very appreciative. Merci. We have noticed that the open rate for the Safety Matters is increasing, but it exceeds 28%. So please encourage SWANA members to open it. I'm sure everyone gets that. You see that on a weekly basis on Safety Matters. We get that, and they monitor who's opening and looking at that. So I encourage everybody to get back with your groups, with your departments, with any of your safety managers, to make sure to share that with the staff. So that's pretty much and one thing that we're really pushing as far as the safety matters and get the message out there is there's going to be a big drive and a big push. We've been on the 5 most dangerous jobs for quite a while, and the real push over the next few years is to get that, off of the top 10. And there's going to be a big drive to get that, which is huge, to move that that needle very far. But that's going to be the drive going forward. So Lori, that'll complete my update on the international side.
Well, thank you, Pat. Lots of great information. Thanks for sharing. All right. All right, with that, and speaking of safety, we do have a safety update from our safety ambassador for the chapter with Mike Prado. And just a little background, Mike. Mike is currently the safety and training coordinator with the city of Phoenix. So he oversees all safety and training that's related to our collections team. He's worked with the city of Phoenix for 13 years now, but has been working in the industry for nearly 17 years. So we're happy to have Mike and his expertise join the chapter, and he has an update regarding safety. So Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Lori, and good morning to the group and everybody that's on. Happy New Year's to everybody as well. So I do want to share a couple updates and also pass on a safety message. But so first update, so everybody is probably well aware that the feds enacted subcommittee groups to start to look at heat injuries, illness prevention in outdoor and indoor work settings, right? Heat exhaustion. There's no specific guidelines out there and or regulations, so or even mandates. So those have all been vetted out by the committees, and the city of Phoenix did receive a letter in November, a questionnaire letter from a subcommittee group, just asking some general questions in regards to what we do, how we do it. So I think for the state of Arizona, I mean, it's been hot here, forever. So we've adapted. We have a lot of protocol in place for heat-related stress. I think we're probably in a better position than some states, especially the states that have experienced excess heat that wasn't normal for that for their state or their city. So and they may not be prepared. But we've been battling this since 100 years and more. So I just wanted to share a little bit. I don't have a lot of information, but what I can tell you is what I saw and kind of my thoughts of it. And then I'm waiting to get a update from Maine SWANA on where it's going. And what I really see it is they're just asking questions as far as some examples, training. What are we doing for heat-related training? So I know for the city of Phoenix, we give heat-related training twice a year. We cover hydrating, we cover the signs and symptoms, right? If you're starting to feel hot, what do you do? So they also ask questions like, what's readily available? We're offering water, we're offering ice, Gatorade, etc. We also have put thought into what type of uniforms we're putting our employees in, right? So another question such as the ability for what's the ability for an employee to escape the heat prior to heat exhaustion. So as we know, our units and have AC, so we really train our employees to know that if they're starting to have having some symptoms of heat exhaustion, that they escape the heat, they take a break, they get in the truck where there's AC. And then we also, for some of our employees that are on the ground, there was the question, do they work in tandems? Is there somebody there that's kind of looking out for them? And for the city of Phoenix, yes. And then another example of the question would be, what is the protocol? Right? Somebody starts to have a heat stroke or heat exhaustion or experience that. Is there a protocol in place? So what I believe that they're really looking into is what's in place. Does it make sense? And when they talk about heat-related or excessive heat, they have deemed it as 90 degrees or higher, right? And this is indoors or outdoors. So fortunately for the city of Phoenix, we are either meeting or exceeding what they're asking for as far as the way they pose their questions. And I would say that's probably the same for your organizations throughout the state of Arizona, because again, we've been dealing with it for a while. So like I said, I think we're in a good spot. I don't really foresee mandates. I see more of just making sure that we have plans in place and we're all across the United States that we're prepared to handle it when needed. So I think the real challenge, though, I'll tell you, for the state of Arizona and kind of our workforce right now, is we have people coming to us that are coming from a background where they're not used to working outside. And how do you take the middle of summer and just put somebody in 117 degrees and and then hope that they can get acclimated in the day? So I think our challenge and our goal is to find a way to acclimate employees, and I don't have that answer. How do we acclimate them? We constantly have to hire, as you all know, and it includes hiring in the summertime. So I think that's the goal is to work to is really, I think how we combat that is really having our managers and other fellow employees really monitor them, right? Keep an eye on the new employees when they're out there. If they start to look ill, not look right, that's our duty as managers and peers to say something. So but again, I don't want to dabble too much in this because I don't have a lot of information, just more general. Hopefully more to come soon from Maine SWANA, and we'll get the information as it comes from Dave Biederman's team. So next, I just want to get a quick update on the Safety Ambassador Committee. So we are scheduling our first committee meeting for 2022. Our goal is still to work to improve safety at the transfer stations and landfills across the state. And that's going to be one of our big goals for the year. So we'll keep pounding the pavement. Fortunately, we weren't able to do any safety hauler outreaches just because of the COVID and where we're at with Omicron today. I'm not sure if those are rational events at this point, but we'll continue to meet as a group and see what we can do together to identify where our safety challenges are at landfills and transfer stations, and see what we can do with what we control. So more to come on that, but it's been a fast year. I mean, 2021 went by pretty quick. I really want to accomplish and move the needle on some of these goals moving forward and work with the committee. So, and last, I'll just leave you with this, some food for thought, a little bit of a safety message and a real-time challenge. So I want you to think about your organization. It doesn't matter what position you hold in your organization, whatever your position. Think about where you were pre-COVID, and then where are you at today, and thinking about it from these points. Safety, where's your safety going? Has it gotten better? Has it gotten worse? Are people taking shortcuts? Because as we all know, and at least for the city of Phoenix, we're experiencing open routes. We're experiencing staff shortages. We're experiencing longer days. It's just a lot of stress. So I'm sure, there's a lot of parity throughout this industry. So I'm sure your guys' organizations are experiencing the same. So I just really, you don't have to have the answer. I don't have the answer for you, but I just would like you to do some reflecting on your own organization and decide for yourself. Is safety still priority? Or has that taken a back seat to some other things? We know at the city of Phoenix, we've had some challenges with it, and we're working through it. We know our customer service is lacking. In some cases, our customer complaints have went up. And is it because the employees are rushing and because there's all the open routes and they're tired of working the late days? I'm sure the fatigue is real, but we cannot ever compromise safety to get the job done. And then customer service. We ultimately work for the residents, and we need to make sure that our customer service is still on point, no matter what's going on in our operations. The residents still deserve elite service. Productivity. Where's your productivity? Has it gone up? Has it went down? And then I think the biggest thing that I would ask this group to be mindful, and I ask my group to be mindful, is what is the frontline message? Our direct supervisors, our direct foremen, our direct managers, what kind of message are they conveying? And I'll give you an example, and this is a real true example. So I have ran into a couple instances where I identified that foremen are, rather than saying good morning, they're letting their groups know how many open routes they have for the day. What are they doing with it? What is that message? I understand what they're doing. They're asking them to, cut corners. We got to get this job done. So they're again placing production and getting the job done over safety. What I say to combat that is that, they need to understand that one driver can only start one route and pick up one container at a time. And then we can move to the next route. So unless you can show me a better way, and it can be a container, it can be a front load, it can be a stop, it can be a bulk trash pile, but we can only do the first part of our job first, and then we can go work on other route. So I'll leave you with this, and I challenge this group, and this is everybody, no matter what your position is in the organization, but I challenge you that if you're seeing unsafe actions or behavior or infractions, I challenge you to, and it's a cliche, but it's a good cliche, I challenge you to, if you see something, say something. And I thank you for your time today.
All right, thank you so much, Mike. It's a good challenge. Good challenge for all of us. I know, even for us that maybe in an office setting or, not necessarily out in the field. I mean, when we're out and we see drivers, or we're out at the landfill or at the transfer station, really safety begins with us. It's a culture, it's a mindset, it's something that doesn't happen overnight. I know where we are at City of Phoenix, this has been years in the making, where we've established our own safety team and really trying to instill that culture of safety in our operation. It's a work in progress, as I'm sure it is for many of your organizations as well. So thank you, Mike. Those are all great feedback and things to consider and challenges for us. So safety starts with each of us, and it's up to us to model that. So thank you. All right. Again, just a reminder that there is a chat function here in Zoom. If you have any feedback, you can type that into the chat function, and all can see that. We do have an update this morning from Pete Klimoski, and Pete is our legislative liaison. He's joined the SWANA board a couple of years now, so he is our expert in providing us up-to-date information regarding legislative issues, not only locally but nationally as well. Pete has an update for us on what's going on in the solid waste industry, so I'll turn it over to Pete.
Right. Thank you very much. Again, welcome to 2022. The legislative session has already started on January 10th, and they're busily proposing all sorts of new laws. Let me put the slide up here. Can you see that?
No, not yet, Pete. Let me see if I can update. Why don't you try now, Pete?
Yes or no?
No.
Okay, let me try
Let me
something
see.
else.
Hold on, I'm gonna try again. Sorry, everyone. We're gonna fix these. Okay, now try.
I'm using the shortcut Alt-S to share the screen.
Can you share your screen once more?
Okay, let's try this. How's that?
No, not coming up.
Okay, well, let me just walk through it. We'll do it the old-fashioned way. Still nothing?
No, nothing's coming up. I did give you options to share, so.
One last time. Share screen.
Here it comes.
Okay, good.
Hold on,
Persistent.
it's still loading. Okay, you're good. It's on. It's up now. Pete.
All right, very good. All right, I was telling you about the Arizona legislative session already starting. Just to give you an idea, it's barely been 2 weeks, but they've already introduced 809 pieces of legislation. And that's only about half of what they did last year. Now, that's an awful lot of ideas and things being put forward. But I look at that in a positive sense, is that they're fairly responsive to needs out there. For example, last year in our industry, there was a discussion about increasing the CDL time from 5 years to 8 years, and that passed and stuff like that. So as an organization, SWANA can put forth ideas to the legislation, to the legislature, and they are able to consider them and put them forth. So I'm very impressed with that on the local level, but I'll be monitoring that on behalf of the Arizona chapter, so that I'll keep you posted. On the national level, you've heard about the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. That did pass, and that's in the process of being disseminated. And that was one of the topics that was discussed on the core advocacy group phone call, which I'll talk about in a minute. The Build Back Better Act, you probably heard about. That's went back to the drawing board. They say they will bring it back later, but for right now, that's on hold. So we'll focus on what did pass. Okay, for those people not familiar with the core advocacy group, it works out of our national SWANA office. Jesse Maxwell is the person that oversees that. He provides the channel between government and SWANA action and the members. He regularly solicits information or requests from the memberships as far as what type of information they are looking for. And for example, on the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, there's a certain number of grants that are being made available. There's a Recycle Act grant for $75 million over 5 years. Save Our Seas grant for $275 million over 5 years. So SWANA's role is to help the EPA determine how to distribute grants. SWANA has already identified high priority targets on where to spend the money. Typically, you get the money approved 1 year and then you don't see it until the next year. So that usually you won't see this money until 2023, but SWANA is looking to get that money released sooner. So as soon as any money is available, SWANA will let us know when and where to apply for it. So that's one of the roles that the National Advocacy Group is working for. Now, other topics that were discussed on the call, besides recycling grants, you can see there on the screen, but I only want to focus really on a couple of them to show you how SWANA operates. This national recycling strategy has been in the works for several years and is being updated with the new administration with an emphasis on added emphasis on climate and social justice. But what SWANA does is their role is to help us to improve markets for recycling, increase collection and improve material management infrastructure, reduce contamination, enhance policies, and standardize measurement. So their specific role is to help understand what actual recycling infrastructure is available and to make the public aware of the funding and incentives for recycling. In this way, they hope to improve efficiencies at material recovery facilities and increase collection of recycled materials in general. Education is a big component of SWANA, and they want to make sure the public knows how and where to recycle and make sure these resources are available to the local cities and members. One of the big roles is to strengthen federal coordination. The government is willing to do a lot of things, but SWANA has the expertise to show where and how best to use those resources on the federal level. They do this by sharing best practices on policies, programs, and funding opportunities. And they are looking to make all that information publicly accessible on an online clearinghouse. They also, a lot of the challenges that we're facing is every municipality or area has their own way of describing recycling. So they're trying to define national recycling definitions, measures, targets, and performance indicators. And in order to do all these type of things, they are looking for action leaders and action supporters to help facilitate this. And so as these opportunities become available, they will let us know. So if you have interest in becoming a part of the process, you sure can. And if you just want to be kept informed, that's the role of the core advocacy group. The other area that we hear about is PFAS. They're trying to get a handle on that as far as it's beginning to become a problem in our waste streams. SWANA is helping keep the focus on the fact of the source of this contaminant, as opposed to there was some action about making the landfills or where these commodities end up more responsible for it. And so SWANA is staying on the forefront to make sure that like any other thing, those people who produce it bear a certain responsibility to minimize it or contain it at the source. So that's one of the roles that SWANA is taking care of. Landfill regulation is another, and you'll be hearing more about that from Katie Phillips here about the type of things that happen. But they also have input on international treaties that come up as far as, for example, the Basel Convention on the recycled scrap between countries that they're working for. So there's a lot of things that SWANA is involved with in terms of government regulation and education and grants. So the slides for the core advocacy group for the January phone call are available. Just let me know, or we'll be posting them on site at the website. There's a lot of other things that are happening, and so we'll try to keep you posted and make you aware of how you can participate. Again, if you have an idea or something that is you're up against, let the SWANA board know, and we together as an organization can help resolve them and find ways to make our lives better. All right, with that, I will turn the slides back over to you. If there's any questions and stuff like that, you can put them in the chat at the end. And thank you much.
All right, thank you so much, Pete. Great information. And like Pete said, we will make these slides available on our website, which is swanaaz.org. So we'll be sure to post all slides that are presented today at this webinar on the website, so you can have access to that. And as well, we'll also post this webinar, which is recorded. We'll have that posted to our page as well if you'd like to share it with anyone else in your organization. So thanks again, Pete. All right, so with that, we do have a guest speaker that we're really excited to have join the Arizona chapter and share a bit of her knowledge regarding landfill regulations. And our guest speaker today is Catherine Phillips. And Catherine is currently a solid waste inspection supervisor with the city of Phoenix. She actually just started with the city of Phoenix just a month ago in December 2021. So she's new to our organization, but she brings a wealth of information and knowledge. She was actually a compliance officer with the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality in the solid waste unit, specifically working in inspections, compliance, and enforcement. She's been in the environmental regulatory field for 6 years now and has held various positions. She's worked for the city of Tempe and industrial pretreatment of wastewater, and then also with state of Arizona, and then mostly with an ADEQ. So we're excited to have her share some of the information regarding this particular subject with environmental quality. So with that, let's welcome Catherine Phillips, and she has a presentation for us this morning. So take it away, Catherine. Thanks.
Yes, thank you. Like you said, my name is Catherine. You can also call me Katie. And I have to apologize before I start for my voice. I'm getting over the end of a cold, so I apologize if I have to cough or clear my throat. But yeah, today I'd like to talk to you about kind of an overview of solid waste landfills, regulations, common violations, and some of the requirements that take place at specifically municipal solid waste landfills. Let's have this go forward. Okay, great. So our solid waste regulations come from two different areas, federal and state level. Obviously, for the purposes of today, we're going to be talking about Arizona State, and specifically Arizona Revised Statute Title 49, Chapter 4, and the Arizona Administrative Code Title 18, Chapter 13. On the federal side, 40 CFR 257 is typically for your non-municipal solid waste landfills, and then 40 CFR 258 is for your municipal solid waste landfills, which is the bulk of what we're going to be talking about today. So this might be a little bit of a review for everyone, but I just thought we'd touch on it to make sure we're all on the same page. But I think it's important to define what a solid waste is in the regulation. So that definition comes from 40 CFR 258.2. It's quite a lengthy definition, so I tried to emphasize, kind of bold and underline the important pieces here. But generally speaking, a solid waste is any garbage, refuse, sludge, or other discarded material. It can be solid, liquid, semi-solid, or contained gas. And it comes from pretty much all human activities. They list here industrial, commercial, mining, agriculture, and community activities. It's also important to understand what isn't a solid waste, and this comes from 40 CFR 261.4. This is the exclusion regulation. And it's quite a long list. So I put a few examples up here, including domestic sewage, radioactive waste, spent sulfuric acid, pulping liquors, and many, many more. This does get updated on a semi-regular basis. I think the last time was 2018. So it's always good to check and make sure that we have the most up-to-date clarification from EPA on this. And so let's jump into Arizona. So at ADEQ, they break down solid waste into 9 main media types. And I put them up here on the slide. It's landfills, transfer stations, used oil, tires, composting, lead acid batteries, special waste, septic haulers, and biohaz. I can't go into all 9 today, so we're just going to focus on landfills and specifically municipal solid waste landfills. But if there's any interest in the future in going over any of these other types, I'd be happy to do so. So in terms of landfills, there's 4 main types. Like I said, municipal solid waste landfills. I think that's probably what comes to mind when most people hear the word landfill. But there's also non-municipal solid waste landfills, mining operation landfills, and private landfills. We're going to ignore mining and private landfills. That's a whole nother ballgame. And we're going to talk about the difference between municipal and non-municipal solid waste landfills. So it really comes down to the types of waste that these landfills are allowed to accept, handle, and send for final disposal. On municipal solid waste landfills, they only accept household waste, household hazardous waste, or conditionally exempt small quantity generator hazardous waste. If you own and operate a municipal solid waste landfill, you must, which is why it's highlighted, must obtain a solid waste facility plan and master facility plan approval from ADEQ. You cannot start without that, so don't do that because that would be a big problem. On the non-municipal side, those types of landfills are really only accepting construction and demolition debris. They're subject to APP or Aquifer Protection Permit requirements and federal regulations under 257. But those are just for the solid waste piece. Landfills touch a lot of different areas of environmental regulation, and so there are other permits that you may need to consider at your landfill, such as air quality, stormwater, dust control, county transportation, and much more. So I always say, check with your local county and federal regulators and make sure that you know you have everything that you need at your landfill. All right, let's talk landfills. So here's a cutaway of what a general landfill would look like for a municipal solid waste landfill. The most important piece here are these very strange blue blobs. That's the waste footprint. So that is the waste that we are bringing in for final disposal. They are encapsulated in a landfill liner, and this helps prevent any potential leaching into the environment, protects human health as well. There are two main systems here. You'll see the gas control and then the leachate collection and treatment system. Both of these are really critical for our environmental monitoring piece that's required by CFR, and we'll go over that in just the next slide. And then at the bottom, you see groundwater. That's really critical. We want to protect our groundwater, and so we have a groundwater monitoring point on the far right-hand side. So this just gives you kind of a slice away at a landfill, kind of generalized of the systems, but we'll go into more detail here. At a municipal solid waste landfill under 40 CFR 258.2, there are prohibited wastes that you are not allowed to have on-site at your landfill for final disposal. That includes hazardous waste, PCBs, bulk liquid wastes, treated domestic sewage sludge or biosolids, refrigerant-containing wastes, radioactive waste, bloodborne pathogens, and regional and local prohibitions. Now that last one is vague for a reason. That's where your permit would come into play, or your master facility plan approval. That's going to have a very specific list of wastes that you are allowed to have on site and handle for final disposal, and another very specific set of wastes that you are not allowed to have on site for final disposal. That list may be longer than what's in the CFR. So definitely check that, make sure you totally understand what waste you're allowed to have on site and what you are not allowed to have on site. Okay, so environmental monitoring is another big requirement at landfills, and they generally fall into two main categories: groundwater protection and landfill gas monitoring. On the groundwater protection side, that's going to include your leachate collection and monitoring that we saw in that cutaway. Regulatory agencies will require you to sample for certain chemicals and analyze for potential contamination. It's usually done on a semi-annual basis, and you would submit that to ADEQ. This is a detection monitoring program, so we want to be watching our trends to make sure that we catch any exceedances before they happen and document the corrective actions that we're taking. Like I said, leachate collection is included in this because we do not want leachate, which is that excess moisture coming through the waste, to reach groundwater. So it's really critical that we're monitoring that leachate, making sure our collection system is working. And then at the bottom, there are some typical parameters that would be included in your groundwater protection program. It may be more, it may be less, it depends on your regulatory agency. On the landfill gas monitoring side, this is another really critical component to protecting human health and the environment. So your landfill gas composition depends entirely on the biological activity at your landfill, whether it's aerobic or anaerobic, which I'll show a graph that kind of demonstrates this, I think, really well. But the primary components that we're looking for are methane and carbon dioxide. So methane must be monitored at the landfill and at the perimeter, as well as the on-site structures. That's one that gets missed a lot at landfills. And it needs to be between 5% and 15% of the lower explosive limit. I know we just talked about safety a lot, but methane is odorless, colorless, tasteless, and can be explosive. So it's really important that we're keeping tabs on where the methane is, what levels we're at, and if we need to potentially extract the methane to keep the public safe and keep our staff on site safe. Okay, so landfill gas composition over time is here on this graph. So you'll see kind of on the far left-hand side, the beginning of the landfill. So you've got nitrogen and oxygen, which is just our natural air in those spaces in the landfill. As we begin to deposit waste and the bacteria begin the process of decomposition, CO2 begins to ramp up and we enter into anaerobic and methanation phases. This is when methane begins to get generated. Now, over the life cycle of a landfill, CO2 and methane will level off, but you'll see that we're still generating a lot of CO2 and methane. So we really want to make sure that we're monitoring for this to keep everyone safe and protect the environment. At the end of the life of the landfill, that will taper off as the bacteria has eaten all of the good stuff that we put in that landfill. And then natural air, nitrogen, and oxygen will return at the end. Like I said, methane is odorless, colorless, and tasteless and can be explosive. So this graphic shows why it's important to not only monitor at the landfill, but also for landfill migration. There are lots of exposure pathways for methane to impact public health and the environment. And this kind of shows, where that could happen. So it can move underground into potentially someone's home, or in this specific example, a utility tunnel. And we really want to prevent that. All right, let's talk about groundwater protection. So this is another cutaway of a landfill looking specifically at the leachate collection system. I saw this graphic actually first at a SWANA class, so I totally stole it because I think it really illustrates the point really, really well. At the top, you have rain potentially or precipitation coming into the landfill. as well as excess moisture from the waste. We think food waste, there's a lot of water and food waste that goes into landfills. That will all fall due to gravity to our leachate collection system, which is above our liner, so we're protecting groundwater. It'll be collected, treated, and potentially recirculated back on top of our landfill to help with dust control. But it's important that we monitor that collection system and the leachate, because if you look at this graph, you'll see at high biological activity, so in that acid formation methanation phase of our landfill gas composition, our leachate becomes acidic, and we have a high biological and chemical oxygen demand in that leachate. So we have a lot of biological activity going on that's leaching through that waste. We really want to prevent that from reaching groundwater. So we need to monitor that, and we need to monitor our groundwater. Okay, all of the environmental monitoring stuff aside, what should you do if you're preparing for an inspection from, let's say, ADEQ or another agency? On the left-hand side, I've put together a list of documents. It's not exhaustive, but this is a good place to get started of what you should have available for your inspectors when they're on site. It includes things like your MFPA, your facility operating plan, your environmental monitoring, your random load inspections, and so on. On the right-hand side are the observations that the inspectors will probably be looking for. They definitely want to see your active working face. And I emphasize active because they want to see active management of the waste from beginning to end. So there should never be random, carry bins filled with garbage that you're not managing. It should all have some sort of active management to it. They'll want to look at tarps, stormwater, perimeter fencing, fire suppression, and so on. If I could impart any one piece of advice to you from my time as a compliance officer with the state, it's to remember that if it isn't documented, it didn't happen. And this really comes into play with corrective actions, adverse weather logs, and random load inspections. If something went wrong at your landfill, which it does happen, it can't always be perfect, it's really, really important that you document the steps that you took to correct it and fix it for the future. You want to use your facility operating plan as a way to tell a story with how well you're managing your landfill. So I think that's my biggest piece of advice. So lastly, I want to go over just some common violations that we would see at landfills. I'll start at the top with odor, windblown litter, and vectors. This is a big one. We see it all the time. It's very common. And the best way to handle this is to make sure you're using daily cover. So you want to make sure you have at least 6 inches of daily cover on your waste, as well as appropriate and reasonable use of your alternative daily cover, or ADC. And the federal side says appropriate and reasonable, but your permit will specifically outline when and how you can use your ADC. So always check that and make sure that you are following those rules. Second, we've got lack of controls for wind and surface dispersion. This ties into windblown litter and is a chronic problem at most landfills. I have been to landfills where they have documented 85-mile-an-hour wind events. And when that's happening, fencing is not going to stop the waste from blowing off site. But you can take steps to mitigate this and stay on top of it as much as possible. This includes daily removal of solid waste from the property boundaries, adequately sized fencing, and appropriate daily cover, as well as documented instances of major wind and weather events. I don't think a lot of landfills take advantage of that, but you can absolutely document any severe weather at your landfill that may have led to windblown litter or odor or vectors. And that, again, can help tell that story of taking corrective action. Third, acceptance of prohibited waste. Hopefully this never happens to you, but unfortunately it does happen. And this is where documentation becomes critical. You want to have documented random load inspections, as well as a documented program for your random load inspections. So you want to make that as detailed as possible. And I can tell you from experience that random load inspections are not the same Wednesday at 9 a.m. with the same 2 commercial generators. That will not fly. So you need to make sure it is truly random, whatever that means to you, and how well you can implement that program. If in the event prohibited waste does end up on your site, the first step is to document waste refusal, so that you gave it back to the generator. You said, hey, we can't handle this here. You need to take it somewhere else. Have that documented in a random load inspection. If, and unfortunately this happens very frequently, the person or generator dropped it off and left and you don't know who brought it in, make sure that you document that it was segregated and not placed in your landfill. And then document, again, this is the theme here, that you had an appropriate waste handler come and pick it up and remove it from the site. And lastly, training is always important, and staff should be trained on waste screening, hazard identification, and spill response at a minimum. Finally, financial assurance demonstration is a pretty common issue at landfills, but it's more of an administrative violation. This documentation, if you're not familiar with it, is required to basically prove that you have the budget to handle closure costs for the landfill. They're usually due on July 1 or the end of the calendar year. It depends on the type of mechanism that you use, but I always recommend landfills to start early with their budgeting and financing teams and keep copies in their facility operating plan on site. There's much more to landfills than what I could fit into 15 minutes. So if you have questions or want to talk about other topics, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you so much for having me. And like I said, if you have questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Katie, thank you so much. That was such a great presentation. It's always nice to see such a complex topic discussed in a much easier format and understandable format. So you definitely made that really well presented. So I appreciate that. Thank you. So I'm going to check the chat box. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to type in your question and we can moderate that and get that over to any of our speakers today. Like I said, we will post these slides and the webinar on our SWANAAZ.org. So these can be available to you and your organization if you ever need to refer to any of these materials. So we'll make sure those are available to you. I don't see any questions coming in though. We do have a comment from Jeff Reich, just letting everybody know that there is an educational training opportunity for 2022 service school on March 29th through April 1st. And this is a training opportunity designed for anyone involved with the design, maintenance, and or installation of liquid or gas handling systems. If you need any information, you can contact Jeff directly, and he provided his email, Jeff at reichco, I think that's rico.com. So please feel free to connect with him if you want any more information. Check the Q&A. I don't see any questions coming through. So again, if there are questions and for some reason you're having difficulties accessing the question box, please feel free to shoot us an email directly to our azswana@outlook.com, or any one of the board members will be happy to get your questions answered. So with that, that concludes our webinar for today, and we kept it on time, so right at about 11 o'clock. So we know you're busy, it's Friday, have a wonderful weekend. Again, thank you to all of our presenters, our board members, to Catherine, thank you again. We wish you all a wonderful, happy new year in 2022, and hope to see you in person at our next general membership meeting, which is scheduled in April. So more information to come out as we get closer to that date, and hopefully at that time we could be in person. So wishing you all a wonderful weekend and stay safe. We'll see you all again soon. So with that, we'll end it. Have a good one. Thank you.